The mute initially started because three of my nieces and nephew, or a niece and two nephews in my family, have autism, and one of them is nonverbal. And the initial seed for the song was just being around him and wondering. I have no idea what is in his head. We know that autism is not necessarily about IQ or an intelligence thing. It's just a communication thing predominantly. So he could have is any depth of emotional life, and I have no idea. And so what started was just writing the story of how do you express yourself when you can't do the one that we all associate as being the most human, which is talking. And then so it just started as a story, and then it kind of turned into really so it goes a little bit to a documentary I saw on autism, and this is from being with him. But there was a woman in her 40s, nonverbal, and she, rocks in place. It's all the very strong autism signs. And she eventually learned to type, and her emotional life was incredibly complicated. Her parents were horrified because they've been talking in front of her whole life like she doesn't understand them. And she was writing things like, I know my rocking is very strange to you, but it's how I comfort myself. And I wish I could tell you that, but I haven't been able to before now. And they were both moved and horrified. Like this whole time, there's been all this going on and we didn't know. And I think it's not, there's muteness of just like literally physically can't do it. But there are a lot of people that just don't feel like they can speak up at times. And it does not mean that they don't have an incredibly rich, complicated internal life. And so this all stemmed from that. Like, just because they can't tell you doesn't mean it's not there. And that was a song I actually crafted over a couple of years because I couldn't quite figure out how to say it. I knew I wanted a simple folk structure, but the words were slow because I didn't want to be flippant.
Yeah.
Like this is kind of a touchy topic for me, so I was like, I want to make sure I'm being respectful of the topic. And so yeah, it was a pretty slow process. I started that song before the Roots and wrote the words slowly over about 3 years.
Yeah. The lyrics are amazing and the melody is amazing and haunting. And the video, you can find it on YouTube, and the video for itself, which you probably directed it, is, I urge you all to watch it. To me, I always I wondered if there was a double entendre there, though, just about some of the things you mentioned in your life. And I'm not going to go unless you want to touch upon that, but the, leaving home and all of that. And so that's, I don't need, unless you're open to going there, but that's what it always felt like to me, that there was a misunderstanding or not understanding or acceptance. I mean, that's kind of what it is about. But
yeah.
And so that was deeply personal in multiple ways, I would imagine.
Yeah, that was the thing about, for me, I spent a few years knowing I was gay, but not knowing how to talk about it. And then I did, and it went horribly. And then I didn't say a word again for 11 years after that. I just wouldn't talk about it until I was about 26. And so I spent a long time knowing something and I just can't communicate it. And so, yeah, it was definitely personal as well, because it was something I was trying to figure out in private and it wasn't working. And then, eventually it gets insidious. You start wondering if all of your relationships are real. You start saying like, yeah, you're nice to me, but would you be if you knew? And it infects everything. I suddenly just didn't trust anyone I knew. It was just getting worse and worse. So, I did it a second time. Second time went much better. But no, I think that's just kind of a common topic. And that's something I look for in writing all the time. And I actually recommend this to people doing creative work. If you have a personal experience you want to write about and you would like to be as honest as possible, one trick is just take all the details away. Remove the names, remove the places, remove the specificity of it. But the human condition is universal. It's why we can read Don Quixote and identify. This is a very old book, but we still see those same struggles. It's because it's just the human condition. So if you take out your specific details, you can write about anything. And I guarantee you, someone out there has dealt with it too.